Grand Prix show jumping is not for the faint of heart, and in today's show, you'll meet...
Great.
This is Unbridled with Susan Kayne at Hits on the Hudson in Saugerties, New York. Presented by Thoroughbred. Family owned and operated since 1949. Thoroughbred produces specially designed horseshoes, racing plates, and therapeutic products to enhance equine performance. Learn more at thoroughbredinc.com.
Hi, I'm Susan Kayne. In today's show, join me at Hits on the Hudson in Saugerties, New York, to meet the man behind America's biggest equestrian events, Tom Struzzieri, the president and CEO of Hits. Over the past 20 years, he has grown Hits into the biggest show jumping venue in the country. You grew up in Huntington, Long Island, not from a horsey family.
Right. Yeah. You know, the one thing we did was we owned a company called Walton P. Davis, which was at that time a horse transportation company. So we were in the moving and furniture business. We were laborers, you might say. And when we purchased that company, one of the things they did was ship horses. And so, that's when I got involved in going to the horse shows with the trailers. And that's when my true fascination for the horses started. But, it started before that. We had one of the two concessions at the World's Fair in 1964 in New York, in Flushing. There was two pony concessions there, riding concessions. There was one really good one, and we had the other one.
So how did that concession come about?
Well, my father put my two older brothers, into that business, and I came along to tag along, and it was great fun for me. Of course, we didn't make any money, which we should have been a sign then that the horse business was going to be like that. But they moved on, and I was always attracted to the horses from them.
And was that affinity for the horse, was that seeded at that time at the World's Fair?
It really was. Pretty much my entire life from that moment on, if you ask me what I would do for a living, it always involved horses.
Tell us how the horse show business evolved out of your love for horses.
I don't think that too many people think they're going to do horse shows. We all think we could ride, and the riding and training is fascinating. And I started off with a little farm in Poughkeepsie called Roseview Stables. And at Roseview I trained and rode a bit, and the only thing I couldn't really do well was pay my mortgages. And so I started to do little one-day horse shows, and those were successful for me. And so then I started to add some multiple-day shows. And by, I think, 1982, showing how old I am, in 1982, long before your time, I started a series of horse shows in Florida, which was my first bit of big circuit-type horse shows.
Now, I had read that you hitchhiked to Florida.
Well,
I'm
not sure that's legal, so I'm not sure that I'm prepared on TV to announce that.
Well, Susie Sholkoff shared that story.
Susie.
We're trying to get some verification on it. How did you have the courage to step out business-wise and tackle horse shows to begin with, even from a one-day show? Well,
the one-days made some sense. They were at my farm, and so certainly in those days, one-days were important horse shows, and so you'd have your customers that would ride, you'd rent school horses, and you'd ride a little bit yourself and design the courses. And those were, those of us in the Northeast who did one-day horse shows, we paid our mortgages by doing those events. Then I had an opportunity to do a multiple-day horse show that had been failing in Connecticut. I moved it to the Rhinebeck Fairgrounds. I think it was maybe 79 or 80. And that was a big success for me. With small numbers, it was still successful. I found that if I worked hard and stayed at it and did many of the jobs myself, I could make it work. And so from that, the plan to go to Florida and do a series of horse shows, that's where we evolved.
What were some of the things that you did in the transition of that show from Connecticut to Rhinebeck to turn it around?
Well, again, it's if you can find the opportunity to learn all the jobs and do a lot of them yourself. So again, I did some of the courses myself, and I believe I did the night watch myself in those days. After all, what else are you going to do at night? And then, and was able to pay our expenses and really watch carefully how we spent money. So that was how I think we turned it around, made certain arrangements with hotels, and worked out the best deal I could for the fairgrounds. I put up my own portable stalls, and I made a deal where they delivered them and I put them up. And so yeah, it's the way you do any business, I feel.
Stay with us. When we come back, more with Tom Struzzieri.
11 to 15, the next show. This is Allison Postier.
She returns with a first-round score of 84.
Welcome back to Unbridled. I'm Susan Kayne at Hits on the Hudson with an exclusive interview from Tom Struzzieri, the most important man in American show jumping. How did you come up with the name Hits?
That was something we just brainstormed around, and we were trying to find something that would have a cool acronym. And so horse shows, and we were trying to sell people on the weather, because so many of the clients that go to Florida come out of the Northeast, and so trying to sell the fact that the weather would be warm. And I guess I've taken a lot of abuse through the years, though, when it rains at my horse shows in the sun. So.
How did your experience in Florida influence your hits, concepts, and ideas? When you were working in Gainesville, were there things popping into your head, I can do this better, and did it start to formulate at that time for you?
Oh, for sure. And certainly made all kinds of mistakes the first years, you can imagine. Still make some, maybe not those same ones. But the key to our ability to run nice horse shows now, I think even more so now, but I learned it then, was to be able to put multiple weeks together. Standalone events, while they're lovely, and many of the exhibitors like them, and they like to come to a place for 1 week, and they're very difficult to make your expenses work. And so, when you can average those fixed costs out amongst more than 1 week, is really the only time that you can make money at a horse show, in my opinion, in the United States.
Did you have that business plan worked out before you started, or did it evolve as you stepped out and went public with Hits?
No, I think that was part of the plan that I had from the beginning. So the first year down there, I did 2 weeks in one town, and 2 weeks in the next town, and 2 weeks in the third town. So I knew that there would be some savings there. That circuit now has evolved into 9 weeks in one place, which of course is really a way to minimize your expenses. And of course, I thought that I could do 6 weeks of horse show. How hard could that be, right? So the one thing I didn't figure into the whole equation was the one horse show ended on Sunday night, and I needed to be set up in the next town Monday morning, and really pretty much the same crew, right? So that was the challenging part the first year.
And at what point did you feel like you were really going to make it with Hits, that this is a viable plan, a viable business that I can grow, it can be productive and make money?
I think for the first year I thought it could. It didn't make money the first year, but I thought it had the makings of a business that made sense. And any business needs the first couple of years to grow, and I thought it was growing properly. And we had the first year, 2 of the horse shows were at that time were horse shows that I would call successful, 500-600 stalls first year out.
You've opened up horse sports to so many people that maybe wouldn't have had an opportunity to participate otherwise, especially with the Marshall and Sterling League. That, I understand, is your brainchild.
It is. And I think it goes back to what I was saying about the first year in Florida. When I talk about the customers that I had in Poughkeepsie and how they weren't really ready for prime time, you might say, the other circuit that existed in Florida didn't offer any of those classes, and it had just 1 or 2 or I think 3-ring horse show, and all elite classes. So my business plan started with classes for everyone, and that evolved into I think changing the culture of the sport so that people decided to horse show who weren't in the absolute elite level.
And not only that, you really created a market for off-the-track thoroughbreds, horses that are super competitive as children's and adult jumpers.
Yeah, the Marshall and Sterling League started off with just adult jumpers, then evolved the second year into children's and adult jumpers, and now has thousands of members that try to qualify for this finals.
How did the relationship with Marshall and Sterling evolve for the league?
There was a salesperson at Marshall and Sterling called Mary Muller, who was just not only my insurance salesperson, but a lovely woman, and she's no longer with Marshall and Sterling, but did a great job and had confidence and faith in me, and has supported me for years and years and years. And I brought this idea to her, and she said that sounds great. And they have been my sponsor for many years, 20 some years, sponsoring this league. I think it's been one of those unique sponsor relationships that has been so good for both of us. Now it's branded. People think of it as a Marshall and Sterling League automatically. So I hope they don't listen to this interview, because if they leave me, I'll have a hard time branding it again. But it's been great for both of us, and so they are great at selling insurance, and they are a great sponsor and partner for this league.
And in 1998, you reintroduced the U.S. Grand Prix League.
98 was the year that I bought the facility in Culpeper, Virginia. And those who are old enough to understand the history of that facility, Commonwealth Park, there was a fellow by the name of Charlie Ziff, who was 25 years before his time, ahead of his time. And Charlie put together the U.S. Grand Prix League and did some great classes. Heck, his biggest class was $250,000 in 1987, which it's phenomenal. And it was that was when we were doing Grand Prix for $5,000. And so Charlie really made a difference. That facility didn't work out for Charlie so well, and so it was floundered a bit, and so it's been for sale for a number of years. And I went down and picked it up, and one of the first things I decided to do was to reinstitute that league that I thought he had the makings of, but I thought with my footprint around the country that I could add to it.
When Unbridled returns. You have achieved extraordinary success with the horse events in a brutal economy, and really essentially in a sport that nobody needs to participate in or even own a horse. What are the keys to your success to keep people involved, to keep it growing and coming back?
Well, if you had asked me a number of years ago, I would have said,
what are the keys to your success to keep people involved, to keep it growing and coming back?
well, if you had asked me a number of years ago, I would have said this was a recession-proof business. But it wasn't, though, was it? A few years ago, when things started to get a little sour, and I guess we went through what they call the Great Recession, if that's what you call it. I'm not sure what we call it, but
it hurt, whatever it was.
and the people who came to the horse shows, the more affluent customers who come to horse shows, start to spend less. And so our business plan, or my business plan, had always been to attract the bigger part of the pyramid. And I let the elite part of the pyramid, we certainly had plenty of them at the horse show with us, but that wasn't our major focus. And so a few years ago, when I saw the middle part suffering, it was time to reach out and maybe reinvent ourselves a little bit. And my partners at Leonard Green understood that that's what I wanted to do. And so that's when we started our $5 or $1 million class, because what I wanted to do was attract the top end of the pyramid. So now as the business has gotten a little bit better, and I think as we've massaged both together, now you find the most eclectic shows in the world that we run, because we'll have the biggest purse in the world in our main ring many times, while we have children or adults at their first horse show just a few rings away. So the horse shows have evolved into 12-ring horse shows for every level. Does that make everybody who comes to the horse shows happy? I think some of the elite riders would like to see us just do elite level horse shows. But they sure do like the prize money that we're able to generate by having 12-ring horse shows, so it's worked out to be an okay situation.
And they probably like the up-and-coming clients, too.
I hope so.
As well. At the Pfizer Million Press Conference, you were emphatic about really growing the whole sport.
You hear a lot of people talk about how they want to grow the sport, but when Pfizer puts their money where their mouth is and has a real devotion towards growing the sport, it was an amazing thing that they put together. So not only the sponsor of the biggest class, they're also putting their money behind how to solve, or how not to solve it necessarily it's a problem, but how we continue to grow the sport, get more people into it, make it a sport that we all can continue to be proud of. So good for Pfizer, best sponsor in the world.
Can you share some of your ideas and vision to do that going forward?
Well, Pfizer is, as I said at the press conference, a great sponsor. And so not only do they help us with the prize money for that class, but Pfizer annually holds a 2 or 3 day symposium on how to grow the sport. So I came to it this year for a first timer and was just stunned at their commitment to the sport. Because Pfizer is a huge company, so it's really Pfizer Animal Health. They're so enthusiastic to help the sport, which is of course common interest of mine. And I told them I could do anything I could do to help next year. And so I'm putting together a bit of material for them. I'm not going to share it with you right away, but I do have some ideas that I think can grow the sport. And they're not thinking grow the sport meaning how do we get more people to the horse shows. They're thinking how do we get more people on horses and around horses and loving horses like I did as a child. And so that incorporates well with my business plan. I don't mind if they're not my horse shows, my customers for 20 years from now. As long as they get into the horses, they'll ultimately be able to let us have a sustaining business for many years.
Toward that end, are there tips that you can share with viewers as to how they can make the most of HIT's experience, or if they're planning to attend their first HIT's horse show?
Well, we run horse shows all around the country, and so, and I target really trainers. So to me, I look at the trainers as my first brush with a customer. And when I go out to promote my business or get together with customers, it's typically with the trainers. Find yourself a good trainer. It's what I did when my children rode. You find people who can train them, who can bring them to the horse shows, who can teach them the ropes, who've been to the horses before. Going to horse shows without a trainer, or buying a horse without a trainer, or learning to ride without a trainer is a mistake, like many sports. And so that's the first recommendation I make. and those people will be the ones who will get you over all the humps at the horse show.
Sarah Brazil.
Now, a lot of people have been introduced to HITS via HRTV's online broadcast and television broadcast of the Pfizer Million, which they reported tremendous numbers for. What do you feel the growing relationship is with television, social media, the web, and your physical event?
Well, I wish I were smart enough to understand all that. That's so complicated. I know the HRTV element, and we're excited about that presence. Just the television part of it, that's part I get, that I understand. And that is just incredible to have, to have a channel that cares about horse sports like they do, because we've been missing that. I know people have tried it, but no one's really done it as well or at all, as far as I could see. And so that's good for us. All the social media stuff, that's why I hire young people out of school to handle for me, because I don't get it. I fool a bit with the Facebook and the Twitter and things like that, but I'm not very good at it.
Do you envision a point where more television coverage will occur of specific events that you have?
Well, for sure, that's a big part of the Pfizer conversation, because it seems to make perfect sense that if we're going to bring young people into the sport, we're going to have to find out what they're looking at. And a lot of them are looking at, like you say, the social medias, and they're always on their phones, and if we can, the more we can do that way to get them to see the sport, the better off we're going to be.
What can we expect from HITS over the next decade?
Well, that's a loaded one. We'll continue to do what we think is a good product. We'll do it around the country. We'll continue to add classes and be innovative with our classes and our class listings. We have a couple more sites that we're looking at to expand to, because I think even though our footprint is around the country, there are some places in the country that could use a little bit of HITS in it, and so I think that's probably where we'll be.
As far as your new ventures, the Diamond Mills Hotel and your triathlons.
Yeah, we have a few pots on the fire, as you might say. The Diamond Mills is a great product. It's a hotel and restaurant right here in town of Saugerties, and I think Saugerties needed something that, for the thousands of people I bring to town for the horse shows, they were looking for something a little more upscale as far as boutique hotel and nice dining establishment, and so that's been great. And heck, I think I just got back from there a few minutes ago from last night's work. We're into some endurance sports,
Sarah
like you mentioned. We're doing triathlons around the country. Those remind me a lot of my first year or two in the horse business, trying to find my way and figuring it out. And it's our slogan is a distance for everyone. So it's kind of the same business philosophy we have with the horse shows. Offer something for everybody, and it'll work out well. And so the same with our triathlons. We're not attracting a lot of the elite athletes, but we're attracting a lot of what we call the age group athletes, which are, the more beginner, novice, intermediate, like myself. I do some triathlons, and that's what got me interested in that sport.
Well, you look wonderful.
Well,
so
yeah,
surely you're a good poster boy.
I'm going to do my first full distance at our triathlon in Naples in January. So people, the viewers will recognize it as an Ironman distance. We don't call it that. That's our competitor. But it's the long distance. So it's the 2.4 mile swim, the 112 mile bike, and then the marathon at the end.
Well, we wish you all the best.
I need that. Thanks.
All of your equestrian events have had a massive impact on the communities.
When you're as lucky as I am and you're so fortunate and have so many things come your way, it's imperative that you look at it as, something where you give back. And so we've been terribly blessed as a family, the Struzzieri family, and I think that both my wife and myself feel that it's incumbent upon us to give back, and our children have learned to do that, and we're hoping that we're succeeding in that venture.
What do you personally enjoy the most about the success that you've achieved?
I'm lucky enough to have a really great core of people that work with me. I don't say they work for me. We work together, and so there's a number of us that have been together for a long time, or even some newcomers. But we work well together. We really enjoy the time we spend together. We work very hard. We enjoy our downtimes. I like to see young people who work for me, aspire to better themselves, start families, own their own homes, all those things. So I think that's really where it comes from.
Over the years, what is your most memorable HITS moment and why?
Oh, there's so many HITS moments that have been memorable for me. It's hard right now to pin one down. But I think the first year in Florida was the most difficult. We had our sanctioning. We had our sanctioning taken away. We got some of the sanctioning back. We didn't keep some of it. By the last week, the entire crew had left, and so it was really was putting the jumps out by myself and designing courses, and to be able to overcome all that first year was to me my greatest accomplishment, even though that was the year when we didn't make any money. Will always be in my memory. And the funny thing about the Federation's problems was, I learned so much from that fight with them. If they had known how much they were teaching me, I'm sure they wouldn't have gone down that path.
Throughout your career, who has influenced you the most and why?
Well, my father was my biggest influence. My father passed away at 91, worked with me for a number of years, always around, a great help, a great worker. When I was a child and I worked with my father, there are memories of coming in a little late at night and maybe sneaking in, and he'd be there and say, "Hey, great, you're up early for work, let's go." And off we went. As long as he didn't ask me to drive, I think I was okay. But the hardest working man, and no matter how well or how successful I am, if I get to be half the man he was, I'd be pretty happy.
Oh, that's beautiful. Did he get to see and share in your success?
Yeah, he spent
with
lots of good times with me, and came to the horse shows, and I think those who remember my father from the horse shows all have fond memories of him. He truly was one of the nicest men and the hardest workers you could meet.
One last question. It's very early in your career and your life, but how would you like to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered in the horse business, if that's the case, if that's where the question's coming from. As someone who opened the doors to so many new people to get into the sport and be able to participate, at this level, without necessarily spending millions of dollars on their horses.
Well, that's beautiful. I appreciate your time. Experiencing hits is like experiencing history in the making in equestrian sports, and we're all very grateful for everything you've done and continue to do.
That's kind. Thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate
your time.
it. My pleasure.
Thank you for spending your time with me. I'm Susan Kayne. I'll see you next week.
Next time on Unbridled.
Join me at Hits on the Hudson for a weekend of $1 million show jumping.
You just, you ride so many rounds over the years, you can just analyze immediately what you've done wrong, and I knew it was not really the horse's fault, and that's why I'm more disappointed, because it's something that I could have avoided.
Well, I'm really proud of my horse. He's only 8 years old, and this was a big step up from him. It's for sure the biggest course he's ever jumped. So I thought he gave it a really good effort, and I'm really proud of him. I think it was a good test for him, and hopefully he'll grow from it.
That's next week on Unbridled with Susan Kayne.